Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Sports in the Mitten. I'm your host, Adam Biggers. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. Read my personal blog right now. The link's on my Twitter, the free agent blog. I'm trying to update it. Been kind of busy a little bit, so we are going to talk about. What are we going to talk about? Michigan superlatives, most improved, most valuable, that sort of thing. We'll get into a little bit of discussion about that. We'll talk about some of the transfers that are going on. Nothing to be alarmed of, I think. Kind of standard fifth-year guys moving on. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I just got done playing with my dogs, like running around outside for a second. And they wore me out a little bit. Weather's been really nice. No complaints on that end, so I'm going to tweet the live link real quick. All right, we're in there. So Tim back, hey Adam, how you keep doing these? It's always fun to watch when I can. Appreciate you for watching, Tim. I'll keep them going, but right now, like I said, kind of busy with other things. A little transition period, so trying to keep tabs on everything as much as I can. Doing a little bit of freelancing for Spartan Mag right now, but I'll be back at something, I'm sure. And plus, right now, just end of the regular season, no real reason I think to do one every day. I've been meaning to do one earlier this week. I was going to do one Tuesday, and then I wanted to wait for all Big Ten teams, and then I got lazy, and then I was like, well, it's Friday. I've typically have done podcasts on Friday, so why not? So waiting for all you guys to join in here. Any questions, again, you can get them on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. I read them off there, or you can just put them right here in the live chat. And while you're at it, please like and subscribe to my channel. And real quick, I want to start off something, guys, because if you've watched this podcast, I've always talked about, be careful where you're getting your information. Twitter, everybody's an expert. Everybody supposedly has connections, and it's relatively easy for anybody to do a podcast on YouTube, as you can see. I do with my low tech. It is not in my mom's basement, as Chat Sports tried to suggest. This is actually the spare room of my 3-bedroom house. But nice try, guys, and I wanna get on that, because you guys got to really be careful. Chat Sports, I hope you guys are watching. They're the Michigan football insider, James Yoder. Never seen that guy at Michigan a day in my life. I was at Michigan nearly every day for 6 years. I will be back. Never seen James Yoder there. I've never seen Chat Sports there. They commented something about they get so many more views or whatever on YouTube, and that's fine. Quantity isn't always quality, and I want you guys to be sure, because you watch this podcast, you want good information. If it's not coming from Angelique at the Detroit News, or Nick at the Free Press, or the Associated Press, Larry Lage, if even the school paper, Michigan Daily, The Athletic, Sam Webb, guys like that, the Wolverines, Scout.com, if it's not coming from one of those sources, it's garbage. Chat Sports is garbage. Chat Sports has never once been at Michigan. They'll never get a credential at Michigan. I will almost guarantee that right now. And they're known for such hit pieces like Michigan players got high before the Appalachian State loss in 2007, citing an anonymous player, never confirmed, just absolute garbage, throw it up against the wall, rumor stuff. That's the clickbait stuff. So yeah, they do get a lot of hits because people are seeing that and immediately they'll click. So just a fair warning, guys, and Chat Sports, I hope you guys are watching. I'm glad that you enjoy commenting on my videos. They're as close to a real game as you'll ever get, so just remember that. Anyway, Frank Lucas says, can't believe Jimbo left Florida State. I can. I mean, that was a toxic environment. I got into a really great conversation with my uncle over the weekend, and we were talking about toxic environments, toxic coaching environments, and he's really into sports like I am. And he and I were talking about it, and Florida State, certainly, that environment, toxic. Tennessee right now, toxic. I mean, it's just, this coaching carousel, that's the term people like to use. It's like the coaching hot stove, hot stove from Major League Baseball. A lot of movement right now. And you often see if a coach is making a move, they're doing it in December, and then you see like an interim coach for the bowl game, or maybe that's the new coach. You don't know. But right now, Tennessee certainly in turmoil. Right now, Florida State, that situation. If you saw a video, Florida State fan asked where's the loyalty, and then they had to put, one of the athletic staff members pushed them out. I saw that, just tap them on the back, so like, get out of here. It's kind of a tumultuous time right now for Florida State football. Tim Beck says, get him. Yeah, Tim, like I said, I want you guys to make sure, because with so much social media, it's easy for anybody to make an account. It's really easy for anybody to present themselves as, for this guy, James Yoder, to call himself the Michigan football insider is a joke. It's more of a, I'm trying to think, it's disrespecting people who are, really. I mean, the real beat writers, the people who are there all day, every day. People like Sam Webb, who's known for inside information. Sam's got great connections. Angelique's been at the Detroit News for 25 years. I was at Michigan for 6 years. Baumgartner's been there for 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I mean, there is a core of Michigan beat writers who would do a fantastic job of covering the Wolverines. Chat Sports is not in that group, and to call yourself the Michigan insider is a joke. Real quick, Tim, since you got me back on it. It's Rant Friday. It's a Freestyle Friday. This is the same site that also said that Wilton Speight, it gave it 4 out of 5 Harbaughs, mind you, which is a scientific grading scale. 4 Harbaughs that Wilton Speight would start against Maryland. 2 Harbaughs that Grant Perry was going to return. So Grant Perry did return. There was no way in hell Wilton Speight was starting against Maryland. He wasn't even cleared for contact at that point. So that just shows you Chat Sports, not a credible media, not at all. And yeah, if it's got 50,000 hits, well, you just spread false information to 50,000 people. So good for you. All right, back to it. Frank Lucas, what do you think? Who do you think we play for our bowl game? Frank, right now, let me start that. Initially, I thought it was going to be the Holiday Bowl in Stanford, because that was going to be a really good storyline, right? Now it's in San Diego. All kinds of Harbaugh ties. Harbaugh's coached in San Diego. At Stanford, he coached at Stanford. But right now, bowl projection-wise, it does look like a New Year's Day bowl is possible for the Wolverines. And if it is going to be one, Outback Bowl, which was kind of the high point, I thought, before losing to Ohio State. Excuse me, I thought it was either going to be Holiday or Outback. Outback would be the highlight, right? The high point. So Outback Bowl versus South Carolina. Familiar opponent, at least in the bowl. If you remember, the Wolverines played South Carolina a few years back. Jadeveon Clowney, that hit on Vincent Smith, who actually, if you guys ever have a chance to meet Vincent Smith, really great guy. He actually does a ton of local community gardening work here in Flint. He's not even from Flint, but he decided to come up here. He's got like these community gardens over off University, not far from U of M Flint campus. Does a lot of great work as far as like. So if you want to know, I know Vincent Smith. He's going to be like an answer to a trivia question. But if you want to really know what Vincent Smith is about, don't remember him, getting blasted by Jadeveon Clowney. Right now, recognize him for he does all kinds of work in the community. So, tip my cap to you, Vincent, if you're watching. Really, really great dude. So, but yeah. Anyway, Frank, Outback Bowl, South Carolina. It looks like for Michigan State, for those who are interested, Citrus Bowl, LSU. I like that matchup. I do. I want to talk, like I said, I want to talk about Michigan superlatives, most improved player. I want to know who you guys thought was the most improved, who had a breakout season. I thought Kalik, Devin were most improved. Chase Winovich, you could put in that too. We could talk about how Mo Hurst got snubbed. And this isn't just, Michigan fans angry because their guy didn't get it. This is like a lot of people across the nation, and you look at the stats. Zach Shaw actually put up the tweet, and that's the tweet that's been going around. Zach over at 24/7 Sports. And, I think Bosa, was like 24 or 29 tackles. And boom, you go Chase, Rashawn, and Maurice Hurst. All those guys had better numbers. Maurice Hurst, obviously, I think one of the best defensive linemen in the nation, bar none the best defensive lineman in the Big Ten. So, I mean, congratulations to Nick Bosa, but the numbers, the body of work, I don't think that you can even deny Mo Hurst. Tim Beck says breakout player next year. I will say Uche at linebacker. I like that. Yeah, if you guys want to talk about for next year or this year, breakout player next year, Josh Uche. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Definitely see that. Devin Gill is another guy too. Devin and Josh were both there fighting for spots in the 2 deep. Those guys have come a long way. I remember talking with Devin Bush Sr. back during spring. What was that? It's Michigan Youth Camp. Something going on in Al Glick Fieldhouse, and I remember I was there with Angelique actually, and we spent a few hours there, and I got to talk to Coach Bush on the side, and if the backstory with all these guys, Devin Bush, Josh Uche, Josh Metellus, Devin Gill, all those guys real close friends and really good football players. So yeah, Uche and Gill I think should be on the what Michael Dwumfor, Kwity Paye. I mean, there are a lot of guys who are going to be potential breakout players, but I think and there's probably a case for a lot of different guys, but I think if you look at what do they do this year that you can directly kind of extrapolate on, predict, whatever word you want to use. Okay, well, maybe we didn't see a lot of Gill, we didn't see a lot of Uche, but I think with Kwity Paye, Michael Dwumfor, I think it's fair to say, and then Lavert Hill. I mean, Lavert Hill this year was a breakout player too. So I mean, Lavert, Khalik, Devin for this year, even Chase, so many guys. This was a really good defense. I think 10 of 11 starters had some sort of all Big Ten or honorable mention. It's a loaded defense. It will continue to be a loaded defense. Greg Madison will continue to have a loaded defensive line, and as long as they are strong in the trenches like that, the defense has been good. For 4 years now, 5 years really, but the past 3-4 years certainly you can attribute the strength of Michigan's defense has always been, and I'm not just talking about collectively, it's always been the defensive line. There's never been a question in the past 4 or 5, since I've been covering Michigan Wolverines football and I started in 2012, there has never been a question about the defensive line. Never. There were some questions at linebacker, there were some questions at secondary, but overall the defense has always been pretty good. But as a group, there has never been a question about Michigan's defensive line, and I think that speaks volumes of the way that Greg Madison develops players. Every guy that I've ever talked to talks about the relationship with Greg, talks about how he's really good at to be a good coach is more than just knowing that the X's and O's and technique. It's personality and being able to bring something out in a guy. You could be a really knowledgeable guy who's got some kind of hard approach, and maybe that doesn't get through to him. You could be someone who's pretty knowledgeable, maybe not quite as knowledgeable, but you have a really good approach, and that allows the player to learn a little bit easier. So it's all about the approach, I think. Greg Madison's got a great combination of both. So Zach Bass says Uche Ross. Yes, James Ross. It's pick a guy, isn't it? It's pretty much pick a guy right now. Tim Beck says this year's most improved player has to be McCune or Winovich, but I saw Winovich coming the way he helped in a limited time last year. Statistically, if you look at like a huge statistic jump, I think it probably is Chase. McCune, most improved. McCune didn't get it. This is his first year in a regular role, so I would go with Chase on that. Zach Bass says, okay, breakout player for next year, Otis Reese, if he still comes. I think Otis will probably have to wait. Michigan is stacked at linebacker. Michigan's got a lot of talent at linebacker. I think Devin Bush next year is going to be a candidate for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. He's already proven to be one of the best linebackers in the country. So, Khalik Hudson at Viper. I wrote earlier this year, a little bit ago on my personal blog, Adam Biggers, blog.wordpress.com, free agent blog, just Google it, or like I said, the link's on my Twitter. I think Jabril did a fine job as a Viper. Jabril did everything that he was asked to do, basically. Khalik Hudson did everything he was asked to do, but actually ended up elevating the position at the same time and kind of making it his own. Khalik Hudson is now the guy, I think, as long as Don Brown's there, and the Viper position is a prominent thing in Michigan's defense, Khalik Hudson's going to be the example of this is how you play that position. Because not only did Khalid, do the physical stuff and he played up near the line of scrimmage, blew up plays and everything like that. He can hit, he could tackle, everybody knows that. But he had the interceptions. I mean, he had the tackles for losses. I mean, Jabril, 16 and a half tackles for loss last year, and that was among the leaders in the country. Khalid had 17. He also had a couple forced fumbles, fumble recovery. He had 5 QB hurries. Or wait, that's Chase, I'm sorry. 4 QB hurries, 2 forced fumbles. So, I mean, you look heads and tails. I mean, Tyreek Kinnell had a great defensive performance against Cincinnati. But I think if you look at what Khalid Hudson had done individually throughout the year, Khalid had a couple of the best individual performances of the season in terms of defensive players. So that's another guy. And breakout player, well, he's already broken out. Next level star, Khalid Hudson, yeah, he's the guy who's on track for that. Sean DeBoer says Bush was better than Bosa this year, but different positions. Tim Beck says, wait, is McCune a freshman this year? I thought he was a sophomore. That's why I said it. He redshirted. Zach Bass says Hudson got so much better the second half. Definitely. Khalid is that's the kind of guy, if you're Don Brown and you love the Viper position and you want a guy who can fly around sideline to sideline, laterally, vertically, you could get in the backfield, Khalid Hudson's the guy that you want. I mean, it's like that's the prototype. And if you've ever stood in Khalid's, they list him, I think, at like 6'1" or 6 foot. Okay. I could see that maybe. I think he's probably closer to like 5'11", 6 foot. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm taller than I thought, but he's about an inch or two taller than I am. But again, he's another guy who is just, Khalid is just stacked. You could look at a body type and you could tell, and Khalid's got that body type a lot like Jabril did. Just real sleek, athletic, built, but Khalid's a little stockier. Khalid's got more of the power that I think Jabril had. Jabril maybe more of finesse and flair. Khalid is more just wow, bam, knock you out. So, like I said, if there is I know a lot of people are disappointed in 8-4 finish. I know a lot of people no Big Ten title, not in playoff contention. But if you do look at some of the individual things that happen as far as growth, and I know, okay, maybe you don't want to talk about that right now. Maybe that's more of a discussion for next year. You're still sore over 8-4, and you're still upset about the loss to Ohio State. I get it, but you do have to look at the upside of this season. Devin Bush, fast track. Khalid Hudson, fast track. Lavert Hill, fast track. Michael Dwumfor, fast track. Kwity Paye, probably on the fast track. On the defensive line, losing Chase, yeah, that hurts. Losing Mo, yeah, it hurts. And Chase is a free agent, he said, so his decision will be coming, but I imagine he'll probably go. But you still have Rashawn Gary. I mean, there's still so many pieces. David Long's going to be a great player. Brandon Watson had a nice year this year. There are a lot of players, I think, that you can look at and say, okay, no problem saying Michigan's going to have another really good defense last year. And this year, I even said, even if there was a slight drop-off, even if the secondary, I had no doubt about it that Michigan would be like a top 10 total defense. No doubt about it. And we saw that this year. Sean DeBoer says, think Hudson will get any appearances in the offense next year? I don't know, Sean, but I do know last year during camp that the idea was tossed around about playing him at running back because he had played running back in high school. But I don't know how serious that was. It was something that I heard. But I don't know if he'll get any appearances in the offense next year. Because, yeah, if you guys want to talk about offensive players, okay, Donovan Peoples-Jones didn't have the year that I thought that he could have. A lot of that was offensive struggles, though. I mean, don't blame it all on... I think some of this was system. I think some of this was offensive line. It was just... The offense just never got it together. But I thought there were glimpses. I mean, some returns, obviously. The end around, or the jet sweep, rather, earlier in the season. I mean, Donovan had explosive plays. So I think next year... He had a couple nice catches this year, too, but... I didn't quite see as much as I hoped for out of Donovan this year. But a lot of that, it's not necessarily his fault. But Donovan's going to be a big part of the offense. No doubt about that. Tariq Black, when he returns, Tariq was the downfield threat. And now I think a player like that, he sat around, obviously probably killed him to have to sit out and watch his teammates play. He's going to be a guy who enters next year with a chip on his shoulder, and that's what you want. A big play receiver who's already proven it. He's even a small sample size. I mean, spring game and everything people were saying about him, and then against Florida, I mean, Tariq has the goods. So now you're going to have that plus a double, triple, or however times multiplied work ethic and chip on his shoulder. So Tariq Black's definitely a guy to watch out for next year. Zach Bass says, do you see any development happening at pass blocking next year and also more consistent safety play? I'm still trying to think who's going to be the positions along the offensive line, because no more Mason Cole, no more Patrick Kugler. I imagine Cesar Ruiz will probably be center. If Grant Newsome comes back, maybe he's the left tackle. Ben at left guard. Right guard or right tackle. I have to think that John Runyon Jr. is going to be one of those. Maybe Juwan. I mean, okay, so I guess I just named off what could be a potential offensive line. Pass blocking, they said, was always something that they were getting better as the year wore on. So is it something that's going to continue on, or does it drop off after the season? They got to pick it up. That's a tough question to answer, Zach. But do I see? I mean, I think that we saw, minus Ohio State game, because they did get kind of dominated. Well, not kind of. They did get dominated in the trenches on that game. But I mean, look at like the past 3 games. The 3 games leading up to Ohio State, Michigan's offensive line looked good. And it was, Minnesota, Rutgers. It wasn't top-tier competition, but at the same time, there was improvement. So do I think, I don't think it's going to regress, if that's what you're asking me. It is. It's a hard question to answer, Zach. Ask me again during fall camp. How's that? Frank Lucas says, do you think any coaching changes coming to Michigan? Well, they're going to be mentioned, right? Joe Moorhead, he was offensive coordinator at Penn State. He's down at Mississippi State. He's got the connection with Don Brown. I mean, these guys are always going to be candidates, right? What makes them a candidate, though? Had they had contact? Have they expressed any interest? Or is it because he's just a good coach and it's a name thrown into a hat? So, again, when you read this guy's a candidate for this job and X, Y, and Z, well, define candidate. Is that a guy that maybe they had interest in the past? Is there some reasonable connection that you could call him a candidate other than, NFL job, Jim Harbaugh, just to throw out a name, with like Tennessee, Greg Schiano's name, I mentioned this before, wasn't even like a big name that people were mentioning in the beginning. So, who is really a candidate, who isn't? And, the report, anonymous source says, Frank Lucas is the kid. Frank, have you turned down Tennessee yet? Have they asked you? Anonymous report says Frank Lucas is a candidate for the Tennessee job. Well, what makes Frank a candidate? Does he know someone? Is he good friends with the athletic director? Does he know people that are there? So you have to kind of question, again, the connection that makes him a candidate. So other than working with Joe Moorhead at UConn, I don't know what makes Don Brown a legitimate candidate. And other than the fact that, yeah, he is going to be sought after. He's one of the best defensive coordinators. But is that just because of that? Is there a real connection, or is it just that? So, Jeed says, future is bright. Jeeds, what's up, Adam? Still in school. Just wanted to add that Mo Hurst definitely deserved honor of Defensive Lineman of the Year over both. I agree, Jeeds. I hope you're paying attention in class, right? I appreciate it watching during school. Wes Weber Jr. says, maybe Chat Sports has inside scoop on Tennessee. They might, Wes, actually. They seem to have the... And again, Wes Weber, thanks a lot for that mic, man. I'm going to get it set up, start using it. But yeah, guys, like, back to that. And I'm not just trying to go out and, call somebody out. They had commented on a couple videos. Can you believe... They said that this kid... They called me a kid, so they think I look young, which, okay, I can appreciate that. They said this kid, mom has a messy basement. Does this look like a messy basement to you? I don't get it. And then had to mention, yeah, they get like 50,000 hits on a video. And that's great. I wish I had those numbers. But I take pride in not, just saying things to get clicks or writing things to get clicks. I pride myself on right information, and it always is. So you will never hear me say or write the stuff that Chat Sports supposedly reports. Four Masterful says, damn, Adam, skipped all my points. Hold on, Four Masterfuls. I was going on a little rant here. Alright, Four Masterful says, I have faith in Peters and surprisingly the running backs. I'm not surprised. I mean, Karan and Chris, you should have faith in those guys. He says, it really comes down to three pivotal things. O-line, wide receivers, in-game adjustments versus good teams. Can't just have a plan A versus top-ranked teams. From left to right, Newsome, Bredesen, Ruiz, Runyon, Filiaga. Or Falaga, I think is how you say it. Yep. And Chuck was in there in the two deep during fall. Zach Bass says, hope that's the order, pointing up to Four Masterful's comments. Zach Bass says, or switch Runyon for Beatty. Frank Lucas says, LOL, I wish. Did Tennessee offered you the job? They might. I mean, I think they're getting down to their list of candidates is shrinking. Jeet okay, I read that. Sean DeBoer says, Les Miles hasn't gone anywhere, bring him in. Jeet says, Jimbo to Texas A&M. Did that just happen? I'm not paying attention. Or is that what you want to see? Because I know Texas A&M had been discussed as a potential spot for Jimbo Fisher. And actually, I was watching ESPN last night, and for once, ESPN has changed so much over the years, but for once, I mean, there was some good conversation on there, and I forgot the name of the anchor, but they made a pretty good point, I thought, with Jimbo Fisher. You're a good coach. Go to Texas A&M. Establish your own brand. You're not living in the shadow of Bobby Bowden anymore. I mean, Florida State football will never be yours. It will always be Bobby Bowden's. If you're a really good coach, you can recruit. Why don't you go to Texas A&M? You can make your own brand. And I thought that was a good point. And something like that would be attractive, I think, for a guy like Jimbo Fisher. All right, Four Masterfuls, did I get all your points? I'm sorry. Wes Weber says, Room needs a Winovich jersey, in my opinion. Let's hit up Chase. If you'll send me one, I'll put it in here. Frank Lucas says, Jim should go after every kid from Florida. Well, gotta believe he's way ahead. He's way ahead on that. Four Masterful, yeah, Jimbo. Okay, so it's official. Yes, Jimbo's at A&M. All right, well that makes sense. It's been confirmed. All right. Yeah, this is much because right before I started the podcast, nothing had been out, so this must have just happened. So thanks, guys. So let me see. We talked about superlatives. You guys are aware of the Michigan transfers. Mo Ways, not a big surprise. Wilton Spate, talked about that earlier in the week. More on that later. Kind of a surprise to me, but there is more to the story, and I will let you guys know when I find that out. Who else? Drake Harris. Drake, not a surprise. They just couldn't. Drake could not stay healthy at wide receiver. I don't know if same one's kind of the case. They moved him to cornerback. They said that he moved really well. I mean, I kind of saw this writing on the wall for Drake Harris, and I really do think. And while I mean, you got to give it to him for sticking through for 4 years. Being part of the team, all the players liked him, respected him, that sort of thing. Everything that I've heard. But I can't. Drake Harris is one of those guys that I cannot help but wonder, what if he played basketball? What if? Just throwing it out there. What if he played basketball? I think Drake Harris would have had a pretty successful college basketball career. I really do. But he wanted to play football at Michigan. And he did that. Four Masterful says, I don't know, staying in the ACC and only really having to battle Clemson, Florida in your back pocket, I say stay. I don't know. Go into and stay though. I mean, you guys remember all like the depth. I mean, things got weird with Jimbo this year. I don't think Florida State wanted him there. And as much as maybe the PR spin, they want a decision and things like that, and supporters' decision. I think this was a way. I think this was kind of a forced out. Everything that I've read. And if it wasn't a forced out, it was a mutual thing. I think going to Texas A&M, I mean, look, in the Big 12, you're still going to be, I mean, you're still in the thick of where all these fast Big 12, you're in the Big 12, so I mean, Texas is a hotbed, obviously. Florida's going to be a hotbed of recruiting. You're going to get all these skilled athletic players. You still have a bunch of connections. You're still in the South, not Southeast anymore, now Southwest, but Jimbo Fisher, you're still in fertile recruiting grounds. Texas A&M, you have a name. Texas A&M also has a name. Great facilities. I think I like this move for Jimbo. For Masterful says he literally gained no weight. Maybe hoops was meant for Drake. That was another thing for Masterful and Drake. And you know what? I feel for him because I can't gain any weight. I eat and eat and eat and eat, and Drake might just be one of those guys that has that body type where you just had trouble putting on weight, and I think that was the case for him. Yeah, definitely. He did not put on the size. Now, would he have done that in basketball? I mean, he probably would have had to put on a little bit of size for basketball too, but I mean, size-wise for a shooting guard, what is he listed at? Probably like 180. Let me see, 6'4", 180. I mean, that's good size for a shooting guard. 6'4", 187, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, for a shooting guard, he's listed at 192, actually, on 24/7 Sports. I don't know. 6'4", 192. Either way, he probably would have been really well-suited for basketball. And Drake could play basketball. I remember when he committed to Michigan State, and then he decommitted, and then because he said he wanted to play football at Michigan, and you're like, wow, this guy, Drake's got great hands and incredible ups. So you're like, he's going to be an exciting receiver. Put on a little bit of weight, he's downfield target. Really good pickup from Michigan. Things just never materialized for him. Frank Lucas says we need better safety play next year. Kendall Young, did you hear the crazy rumor about DPJ looking for a transfer? Where'd you read that, Kendall? Again, and thank you, Kendall, for no, I have not. No, it's not happening. Donovan Peoples-Jones is not transferring. Again, guys, be careful where you read this stuff. And I mean, and look, even some of high-level, big-name professionals, they get duped by fake accounts too. So I mean, it happens. And I'll say, like my buddy Bill Bender at Sporting News, he was talking about a tweet the other day. Angry Bender. He's got his own cartoon. You know you made it when you have your own cartoon, a little cartoon. Check it out on Sporting News. It's pretty cool. Bill Bender writes great stuff. Check him out. But yeah, it's you got to be careful. And I mean, double and triple check. Click the bio, look at the tweets, see how many followers they have, who are their followers, that sort of thing. A lot of some of these independent chat sports, you can buy followers. I mean, you can get 10, 20,000 followers and make yourself look good. You can apply to be verified. So you have to be careful. And like I said, no, if it doesn't come from somebody who's down there all the time, and again, I'll name off outlets. If it's not Angelique, if it's not Nick, Dan Murphy, he splits time at Michigan and Michigan State. He's with ESPN. He does great work. Ballas and John Borton, Chris Ballas, John Borton at the Wolverine, Sam Webb and his guys at Scout.com, and that is merged with 247. So the 247 guys, Michigan Insider guys, Scout.com, that's all one now. Michigan Daily, The Athletic is there. If it's not an outlet like that, or someone like myself, independent, Matt Pargoff, Mason Blue News, if it's not coming from one of these people, it is not good. It is not credible news. It's rumor. For Masterful says, does Furbush replace McCray next year, or is Gill the direct backup? It's Devin Gill. Devin Gill. Any more questions, guys? We're going on 35 minutes on this Friday. December 1st. It's already December. I can't believe it. Tim Beck, who replaces Hurst? Solomon played a lot, but was replacing Hurst or Monet when he came in. I think it was for Brian, and I think Mo Hurst, the descendant of Mo Hurst, and maybe another guy who's going to belly rub, Michael Dwumfor. And I think Kwity Paye is Chase Winovich's direct descendant. Backup. We're going to call him defensive line. Greg Madison, D-line descendants. That's what they are. They should have their own little club within a club. If you're already part of an exclusive club, right? If you played football at Michigan, so you have that. You have that brotherhood. And then all the guys. I'm sure all the quarterbacks had their thing. Running back. Greg Madison's defensive line descendants. It'll be like one of those secret groups like the Skulls or whatever. You guys know what was that thing George W. Bush was in at Yale, that secret society. It'll be something like that, but not as cryptic. So Madison's D line use, says Frank Lucas. Yeah, I'm trying to come up with something clever because I'm. And again, guys, Greg Madison. I interviewed him a couple years ago. Check it out. It's on YouTube. Interviewed him a couple years ago at Media Day, and a lot of the stuff applies to today. The names have changed as far as players. Back then, he was talking about, what Rashawn. This was in 2015. So what Rashawn could do, or no, not Rashawn. Who was he? He was talking about Mo Hurst. Those guys, Willie Henry, Chris Wormley. The names have changed. The philosophy remains the same. If you get a chance, check out that interview. Really, sit down. Probably, I think it was about 15 or 20 minutes, if I remember correctly. Greg just really talked about what it was like building a defensive line. And again, keep in mind it was a couple years old. Maybe some of the things have changed, obviously with Don Brown here, but the bulk of it, the meat and potatoes, remains the same. And Greg Madison, a huge reason why Michigan continues to have one of the best defensive lines in the country, no doubt about it. Ford Masterful says, I have a feeling Villain trumps pay next year and gets the start. I was hearing from Sam Webb that it was close between these two before he got hurt. Yep, Luigi. I forgot to mention him because Luigi and Quiddy were both in there. Luigi and Quiddy both were talked about during camp. So yeah. So Luigi Quiddy is Chase's descendant. One of those guys. I think it's definitely Michael Dwumfor though, filling in. Going to be the next Mo Hurst. Wes Weber Jr. said fake news. Sorry, yeah, it is fake news. Gotta be careful of fake news, guys. If you're on Twitter and if you ever have a question, if you read something, tweet it at me and I'll tell you if it's for real or if it's fake. So, Frank Lucas says, do I think Michigan lands Tyler Friday? I don't know. Ford Masterful says, I heard Pep Hamilton is being looked at for Arizona State job that had been reported by a credible media source. Apparently, he and his family have ties there, and Arizona State wants a coach with pro experience. Pep, yeah, he has been named. Yeah, and there are reasons, I think, that you can at least connect because there's relationships there. So, and he had a 4-year deal. There's buyout clauses, and all this stuff. So, and Tim Drevno had been mentioned, I think last year, was opening at like Western Kentucky. And was he mentioned for the Florida Atlantic job? Florida Atlantic FAU. I can't even talk right now. Kendall Young said I heard Arizona State is interviewing Herm Edwards. That had been reported on ESPN that there was potential interest because the athletic director is Herm's old agent. Herm already took the job. Man, this must have all have happened before I started the podcast. Did he? So it's Herm at Arizona State. Herm Edwards and Jimbo both happening. I don't know. Is that? I can't see anything that confirms this. Where are you guys hearing that? Jump the gun there. Jump the gun. Frank, where did you hear that he already took the job? Because I just did a quick search on Twitter. I can't find anything. And that would be something that's all over Twitter. Well, for Masterfuls, to that point, I mean, Pac-12 job, right? Arizona State has had decent football in the past. I mean, if you remember, like Jake the Snake Plummer, that was a Rose Bowl team. He was pretty good. I mean, Arizona State's had some players come and go, but I mean, you're in the Pac-12. UCLA now with Chip Kelly, USC, Oregon. I mean, Oregon State every so often might be able to come out of the dark. I mean, Oregon State had been a solid program up to a few years ago, if I remember correctly, 10-win season, 11-win season. But then, I mean, you have Washington. I mean, Washington State. I mean, there are a lot of teams that are capable of competing for Pac-12. Stanford, a lot of teams capable of competing for Pac-12 titles. I feel like the Pac-12 is always up for grabs because, I mean, okay, you look at the Big Ten, and maybe there's 4 teams every year. Or I don't know, maybe 5. But I mean, I look at the Pac-12 as it's just much more wide open. Because you look in the Big Ten East, you're thinking, okay, well, it's Ohio State. I mean, you got your pick basically of 4: Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, or Penn State. Those are the ones. And then in the West, you know, Wisconsin, pretty much until until proven otherwise. So you take that into account. But then again, I think when I look at the Pac-12, you're like, so many different things can happen. I mean, Washington State was a team that people were talking about as a possible playoff contender this year. Washington has played good football. Again, Oregon, Stanford, USC, UCLA, and those are big brands. And then your Arizona State. Wes Weber says CBS Sports says Herm will accept the job if he's approved for it. Okay? And he's interviewing the weekend per Adam Schefter. I appreciate it, Wes. Yeah. That's the way. Wes, you should be a reporter, man. You word it just like I would tweet it. For Masterful says, are we expecting a more transfer or is the coast clear? And again, for Masterfuls, it's not like mass exodus and worry. These are essentially fifth year guys, right? I mean, Mo Ways, Drake Harris. It's the writing's pretty much on the wall. Younger guys are coming in. Their times come, and they'll go and they'll get another year. They'll go play somewhere, and good for them. Not including the Hall situation. Yeah, and Jay Raymond actually refuted. People I think had reported that he was leaving. He actually refuted that. So you got to be careful on that. I mean, yes, there's always been that medical issue. And he was never medically cleared by Michigan. The only one I'm surprised, like I said, I'm a little surprised that Wilton did transfer because he'd already won the job 2 years in a row. He'd been in contention for 3 years. I mentioned again in 2014, Brady Hoke wanted to burn his red shirt toward the end of the season. This was following the Shane Morris thing against Minnesota when Shane had the concussion and was just left out there to take a beating by Brady Hoke. By Minnesota. He was left out there by Brady Hoke to take a beating by. Brady might as well have just been slapping Shane himself because that was horrible. That was horrible. Still feel bad for Shane Morris in that situation. But with Wilton Spate, and he didn't leave because of competition. And again, I've talked to sources, very close sources. I've never been wrong on Wilton Spate. And I was told that the family was grateful for the opportunity, that Harbaugh and Michigan gave to Wilton. And Jim Harbaugh asked Wilton to stay. But I think, and then you saw with the interview with Brad Galley on ABC 7 in Detroit, Brad went to Wilton's apartment and actually interviewed him. And Wilton, it's not about the competition. I think it's go somewhere where you could go have a big year and set yourself up as a potential draft prospect. And again, last year, Mel Kiper had been talking about Wilton Spate. So I think if Wilton, is a possible guy to watch out following this season. So I think if Wilton wasn't injured and he had a big year, Wilton would be a quarterback that people were talking about. Could he be one of these, later round picks as a quarterback that might end up being something? I mean, who knows? So, you guys want to talk anything else? We're going on 44 minutes coming up. Before Masterful says, just wanted to check in while on my lunch break. Appreciate it as always, Adam. Holler at you at Twitter. Appreciate it for Masterfuls. And again, guys, I put in a couple calls to that Gangster Party hotline. I think we did flood. I think we did flood them with calls enough. So that was a lot of fun. I'll be talking about Michigan basketball, Michigan State basketball on the next one. Again, Michigan State looked pretty good last night against Notre Dame. First time during the regular season, Tom Izzo's had back-to-back wins over top 10 teams. In 13-14, he beat number 12 and number 8. Wisconsin was number 12, Michigan was number 8. Those were back-to-back wins. 05-06 lost to number 9 Gonzaga in triple overtime, and then beat number 8 Arizona in double overtime. So you're not always getting a chance to play top 10 teams back-to-back during the regular season, but Michigan State did it, and they're both ACC teams as well. And, North Carolina in the past has just owned Michigan State. And I was really surprised Michigan State got out to a 20-point halftime lead. I think that was the first time I tweeted. I think that was the first time any Tom Izzo team has ever taken a 20-point lead into halftime over a top 5 ranked team. So didn't run down the scope, but I think that was the first time. So we'll talk plenty of hoops again. We'll get into, once the Bulls confirmed, we'll get into that with more discussion about who Michigan's playing, more discussion on who has what to prove in this bowl game, players that you want to see, players that I want to see take a next step, because the bowl practices and the bowl game, Jim Harbaugh has described it this way, and players have too. It's essentially a warm-up for next year. These bowl practices warming up for next year, it's spring practice warming up for next year, and of course, then the season is when it's time to put it all together. So, again, I want to thank Tim and Keith at Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor for sponsoring the show. 808 State Street in Ann Arbor, MrSpotsAnnArbor.com. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. Read my free agent blog. The link's on my Twitter. And please like, subscribe to my channel. Share the videos. And, again, I enjoy the conversation. Always appreciate it. Thanks to everyone watching. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good weekend.